Welcome back, everyone, to my channel. This is Chawanne Burns, and welcome to another episode of Business Talks. We have a lot of things that I want to discuss today. First of all, this lady, it's like five women governors out there, and this particular one, she's in New Mexico. Her name is Lawan. Is it Lawan? I forgot her name. Yeah, Lajun Grisham. And she decided that she want to put an executive order to take away your guns. She wants to put an executive order to take away your guns for 30 days in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And she claims it's a state of emergency, a health emergency. This 11-year-old unfortunately was shot. I guess it was some type of road rage incident, and the individual that was shooting fired off and shot a young lady or a little girl in the park. Completely random. She wasn't involved in the incident. It was a road rage incident, but Lawan, her solution was to take away everyone guns. Everyone. And she thinks her solution is going to solve the problem of illegal gun ownership. Make it make sense? I don't know. It's baffling to me. Okay. So we're going to talk about that. Also, we are going to talk about the immigration crisis that's happening in Chicago, Illinois. They met over, I think it was Friday, and Mayor Brandon Johnson, he's crying about it. And also the individual aldermen in the different precincts are crying about it. Mayor Johnson, he wants to get the immigrants out of the police station because he's saying it's inhumane. No duh. But how about we fix the border? How about we close the border? Also on immigration, we got another incident that happened, and we'll talk about that later on this evening. So let's go to our first story of the hour. I don't know why this is showing me again. Let me just go back. Where am I at? Okay, let me just pull up the video. Oh, there we go. Now, this is Luan, or I think her name is pronounced, you guys, Lajane or Luan or Luane Grisham. I don't know how you pronounce the lady name. I guess I probably should have looked it up, but anyway, she really doesn't say anything about nothing, but you know, we need to talk about something about the government and who's protecting us from the government. Who is protecting us from the government? You need to ask yourself that question. Who is protecting you from the government? You might say, oh, the government might not do nothing to me. No, we have centuries of tyranny, or tyrannical people, because they have this crazy psychosis, whatever, that they want stuff done their way. And if you don't agree with them, they will politically persecute you, criminally persecute you, and even kill you. Yes, I said it. I said the K word. They will off you off. And we've seen centuries of that. Who's protecting you from the government? So let's get to what she's trying to say. But this whole scenario, it breeds, it smells like tyranny.
To really make sure that we're lining up all of our resources. And we've been doing that. I have to say that in the last year in particular, and the evidence in Albuquerque and Bernalillo County speaks for itself, that we're seeing a reduction in homicides. But this work tends to come and go. And that can't be the way that we do it anymore. And the way that that's occurred in that way, because we all are resource limited. So we've determined today, and I want to thank you, and I'll introduce everyone on the table, that we don't need any more resource limitations conversations. We need to use the power of a public health and a state of emergency to access different levers, different resources, and different opportunities to keep New Mexicans safe. So that's what's changed today. And we're going to keep doing this work very closely until we see dramatic additional productive changes in the state. So I don't think anyone on the table needs any introduction, but I'm going to go to my left first. With me today is Chief Harold Medina from the Albuquerque Police Department. Chief, thank you. We have the Bernalillo County Sheriff, John Allen. We also have Commander Hernandez from the Albuquerque Police Department. To my right, we have the Deputy Secretary, Baker, from the Department of Public Safety. We also have the Chief of State Police, Chief Weisler. And maybe new to the conversation in this space, but not new to the effort, is former State Police Chief Pete Caceres, who joins us today in a new official capacity, and he is our newly announced Crime Reduction Director, helping us keep the navigation and the coordination of all the different levers, resources, and opportunities to make New Mexicans safer as possible. What I have in the public health order is not agreed to by every member sitting at this table, nor was it developed with all of their expertise at the front. What you'll see is I'm taking on all the major issues. And as I give you the details of the public health order, which I'm going to do in a minute, you'll see that some of them are going to pose incredible challenges for me as a governor and as a state. And I welcome the debate and the fight about making the Mexicans safer.
To me, before she even tells us what she's doing, we already know what she's doing. She's taking taking your Second Amendment rights. That's of Albuquerque, New Mexico citizens. She's taking those away. And before she even start to tell us what it is, she breathes like a tyrant. That's what I get from her. And I don't even know her. This is my first time even seeing this video. I saw little snippets of whatever, but she reminds me of a tyrant. You're saying you're calling this a public health crime reduction. Is a concern of public health. We're not even talking about COVID. She's talking about gun violence. 9 times out of 10, gun violence is probably happening to illegal gun owners. That's literally what causes gun violence. I mean, you get your incidents of, maybe a kid gets a hold of a gun and it ends up firing off. But that's called safety gun ownership. That's probably why you should have your guns locked up away from, your kids that likes to touch stuff, or kids that don't listen. Or if you haven't really introduced your kid to a gun, maybe you need to lock it up. But that's not what this problem is.
Before I give you the details of the public health order, I am going to ask the Deputy Secretary, just to put into context, not that you need it, about just how dire we think the situations are around the state, and in particular, the largest city, the nexus of I-25 and I-40, present very particular challenges for all of us in keeping the Mexicans safe. Deputy Secretary.
Madam Governor, thank you. Members of the press and the public, welcome the opportunity to speak on a subject matter that's close to my heart. Last month, while attending my oldest son's first Yaffle football practice at a public park in the city of Albuquerque, where I began my law enforcement career and have served for many years and I'm proud of and love, in front of the view of 90 school children directly adjacent to a public middle school, 4 juveniles approached one another and began an active gun battle 5 feet away from my son and his teammates. All of the ancillary personnel, the moms, the dads, the little brothers and sisters, the kids playing on the playground, were impacted by the gunfire that was happening around them and the subsequent stabbing and destruction of evidence.
Okay, you said all this. Kids, gun ownership doesn't go hand in hand. We know that it is illegal. We know Kids should not have possessions of weapons. We know that. So, what are you saying here to legal gun owners? What are you saying? You're trying to make them into criminals too? Or you're trying to have open season for criminals? Look, I'm sorry for the traumatic experience that your kids may have experienced, but that has nothing to do with the citizens of Albuquerque, New Mexico. It has nothing to do with them. The job of the governor and the police force or any government official is to uphold, the state constitution and also the United States Constitution. And this is unconstitutional. And I would be mad as hell if I lived there.
Myself and some of the other parents responded in a way to try and get the children to safety, and thank God, none of the children not involved in the intentional fighting action were harmed. That is just, thank God.
Welcome to K-12.
Well, they're going to play a, advertisement during this. So let me just skip it.
13-year-old who brought the gun to this park and the 14-year-old who was also stabbed. I treated those gunshot and stab wounds at the scene while we waited for first responders to arrive, additionally securing the pieces of evidentiary value that would be useful to the prosecution, which is being undertaken by the Bernalillo County Sheriff. In nearly 27 years of law enforcement experience, I've responded to thousands of active, violent criminal events. I have never responded to one before with my son present, and I don't recommend that course of action for anyone else. It has had a marked effect on my perception of something that I'm very familiar with, and the impact is significant. I have seen a deterioration and escalation in violence perpetrated with guns, particularly among our young people, in a manner that I have never seen before. I share that story with you to raise awareness. And media, many members in this room covered that story when it happened because it was significant when it happened. Well, I saw it with my own eyes in color, live. And this problem is real, and I'm grateful to be part of the solution, and I'm grateful for our governor's work in bringing together the agencies and the resources to aid our community at this difficult time. Thank you for allowing me to share that, Governor.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. And as many people here know, it's not an isolated incident. And there isn't one of us sitting right here who doesn't respond in our official capacity, who isn't a current business owner in Albuquerque, or isn't a mother or a grandmother or a father or a grandfather, who doesn't have a personal specific story that includes violence in our community. And before I give you the details one more time, I do want to tell the parents and family members of the children who we've lost to gun violence just incredibly recently and in recent months. I want them to have our shared condolences, and we want them to know that we are horrified by what is occurring around the state and the country, and we're going to do everything. And the group here and my efforts, I hope, are an indication. And so to the Villegases for losing Froyland, 11 killed in a road rage incident. Galilea Santiago, 5 killed on August 14th in her bed while she was sleeping. And Amber Archuleta, 13 shot and killed in Cuesta. And as you all know, there are many more. And it is time to declare an end to this kind of violence. It is, in fact, an epidemic. Gun deaths are the leading cause of death for children 1 to 19 in New Mexico. From 2017 to 2021, 143 children were killed by guns. 49% of those were homicides, 53% were suicides. That's nearly 3 children we lose every month in the state of New Mexico. In 2022, 12% of gun offenders in Albuquerque were under the age of 18. New Mexico ranks 3rd highest in the nation for firearm injury rates, 90% higher than the national average. I'm going to repeat that.
That is your laws, your problem. That has nothing to do with legal gun ownership. Nothing to do with legal gun ownership. Kids getting hold of guns illegally has nothing to do with legal gun ownership. So what are we saying here? Once again, what are we saying here? I wanted to make a point. They're practicing on New Mexico. They probably called her up. Hey, you're 3rd in the nation. I doubt it. I don't know. I had to look those numbers up to see if they 3rd in the nation. You could let's practice to see how the public react. Because New Mexico is probably not that populated, maybe. Let's see how the public reacts if you put an executive order to suspend gun ownership or carrying your concealed weapon. Next, they're going to want to do a check. Well, they already got this. You have to register your gun. Like if you're a carry concealed weapon, now you can't just buy a gun. You have to go in, get your gun. In 30 days, you pay for your gun. In 30 days, they'll call you back and say, oh, yeah, you approved to purchase this gun. Because now they got a federal law and you have to register with the feds the type of gun you bought. And then they have a law where you need a dealer's license, and it's very gray whether or not you should have a dealer's license if you transfer gun ownership, like transfer it to your kids or something like that. They're saying that you need a gun dealership, a gun license, a license to deal guns. Because they're trying to keep track of what type of weapons you have in your home. So they probably called Lajun Grisham up or whatever her name is and say, hey, let's practice on this one city. And claim, oh, we literally, she's losing, and nothing to say. Okay, any child loss is horrific. I'm not saying that, but she said 3 kids per month. That's a slap in the face to Chicago. They wish they could lose 3 kids per month under the age of 19.
Because it shocks me every time I read it or have it in front of me. It's 90% higher than the national average. In 2022, there were 1,306 firearm emergency department visits. 1,306, up from 1,263 in 2021 and 1,129 in 2020. I asked the chief before the start of this just about gunshots. And we're talking in a year's time, 35,000 or more. And most people, I don't think it's all that anecdotally, but are going to tell you that there are shots fired somewhere in Albuquerque multiple times a day. And that frankly is escalating around the state, including right here in Santa Fe. So in this public health order, which is effective today, September 8th, which lasts 30 days, and then we'll, like all the other public health orders, we will either amend or renew or adjust, depending upon where we are. So effective immediately, no person other than a law enforcement officer or licensed security officer shall possess a firearm, either openly or concealed, within cities or counties, averaging 1,000 or more violent crimes per 100,000, and more than 90 firearm-related emergency department visits. So to put that in sort of a layman's term.
Do you think you'd be happier as a boy?
Terms for 30 days in Albuquerque and Bernalillo County. It's the only place that meets both those standards. Statewide order, but only one place meets both criteria, where we have far too many ER gunshot visits and we have far too many crimes involving firearms. We are suspending open and concealed carry. The purpose is to try to create a cooling off period while we figure out how we can better address public safety and gun violence. Now, I am sure, as I go through the rest of this, there are going to be a lot of questions about whether or not we think we have the legal rights to do that. I am sure that before you write this, there will be a legal challenge, and I can't tell you that we win it, given all of the different challenges to gun violence laws and restrictions on individual firearm access and control. I think it's time.
You're not going to win. I'm telling you, you're not going to win because you're trying to fit a square problem in a round solution. It doesn't work. You're trying to figure out how to solve crime and violence is because, I don't know, this is probably a real liberal state hope. I'm assuming you're trying to figure out your gun violence problem, but the gun violence is not from legal carry gun owners. I'm sorry to say that. It's not from legal carrying gun owners. It's not from that. And the citizens of New Mexico, they really need to realize or ask the question, answer the question to themselves. Who is protecting you from her? The government. People like this lady. Who is protecting you from her? The government. Because she's taking away your Second Amendment right. You can't open carry or conceal carry. Next is, oh, we need for you to register all your weapons. Then the next step is, oh, you only could have so many weapons in your possession. Next is they're going to determine how many bullets you can have. Oh, the next step is, oh, we don't need, we're butterflies and unicorns over here. We don't need a weapon, but you have weapons. The government have weapons, right? But you can't have any. They take little bits and pieces from you and you try to force you to bend the knee. You forget your constitutional rights. Some of you guys don't realize the history of tyranny and what happened. Millions of people were slaughtered because tyrants like her. And the Democratic Party, the so-called Socialist Democratic Party. My guess is New Mexico is being used. I just said that. Lim. My guess, New Mexico is being used as a test case to see if they can get away with this in bigger blue states. You're absolutely right. This is a test, the test dummy. Kathy said these representatives are overstepping their authority and working against Americans. Yeah, they are. And we need to vote their asses out. It's one thing, you can't depend on the government. That's why we need to stop depending on the government. You depend on the government for food, for housing, for all this stuff. And they could turn your water off, your supply off, to make you bend the knee to this kind of shit. That's why you shouldn't be dependent on the government. This is exactly the reason why you need to become independent from the government, anti-establishment. Because what do? They try to take away your rights.
We have a really strong debate about all the other constitutional rights. No one right now in New Mexico, and particularly in Albuquerque, is safe in a movie theater, at a park, at a school, at a grocery store, at an Isotopes game, at the university, at the grocery store, I think I said, getting your prescriptions, at work. You just aren't safe. I can't guarantee it, and neither can the men and the women who put on a uniform every day. In that regard, I think it's time to talk about the absoluteness of the discussion and the current court actions that suggest that the Second Amendment is an absolute right and none of the others are. And I'm sure you're going to ask me what I think my chances are. And again, if it opens up the door to the kinds of public safety that keep kids safe, I'm willing to take it on. In addition to that 30-day suspension, and I want to make sure I clarify that suspension does not apply to any private property. Responsible gun owners are certainly not our problem, have never been our problem, and I appreciate the impact that this has. But on private.
But why did you mention suicide? Why did you mention that? Suicide is, they probably didn't randomly go somewhere out in public and commit suicide. No, they were actively in their home, probably commit suicide. So why did you even mention that in that statistic?
Private property, this has no bearing, but you on the premises, and it has no application on the premises of a licensed firearm dealer or gunsmith for the purposes of lawful transfer or repair of a firearm. While engaged in the legal use of a firearm at a properly licensed firing range or sport shooting competition venue. While you're traveling to and from a location dealing with your firearms. They have to be in a locked box or they have to have a trigger lock. So that's how we support.
She's saying they got to be in a locked box when you're transporting. That's just carrying a concealed weapon. If you're not using it, if you don't have a license, you got to have it in the back of your car in a locked box. It can't be loaded. Okay. But who is protecting you from her? Who is it?
In their daily activities. And the New Mexico Regulation and Licensing Department will conduct monthly inspections of licensed firearm dealers in the state to ensure compliance with all sales and storage laws. We will also make available any of these storage and lockbox.
This is what pisses me off. You got a business, a legitimate business, licensed firearm dealers. Do you think they selling to Pookie and Ray Ray? Hell no. They're not selling to Pookie and Ray Ray. Your president let the merchant of death go. He traded her for Brittany Griner. That's who's selling the Pookie and Ray Ray. He's running guns from wherever, and they coming from, I think Tracy said they coming from Central America and New Mexico. That's how they getting guns in illegally. And you right on the border. So what are you talking about? And so now you're going to make the gun license owner, the retail store, you're going to make their life miserable. And they got to follow everything by the T because there are federal laws out there that they have to follow. Or they could lose their license.
Boxes or trigger locks at no charge to individuals who ask us for access to such devices. In addition, which I don't think will withstand, I believe, any challenge to the public health order, we're going to compile data much more regularly and routinely about gunshot victims in our emergency room so that we know exactly what's occurring in every single emergency room and every single hospital statewide. And we will make sure that we know everything we need to know about the firearm, whether it's lawful, unlawful, what the caliber is, so that we can use that data to do more for bad actors and any other pertinent.
You already know that data. Come on. You already know the data. Why do you need? All you need to go back is this is a commission of crime? Who shot this victim? Did we catch up with the victim? Most of the time, if it's an unsolved crime, it's probably an unlawful gun use. They didn't have a weapon to carry because if a person is legally carrying a weapon and they use it as self-defense, they probably like, oh yeah, this person was breaking into my house or tried to rob me, so I shot him. There's nothing to hide about that. But if it's a commission of a crime and you're saying you got high rates of people going into the hospital with guns, gunshot wounds, and they tell you, oh, they might be telling you a lie too. Oh, I accidentally shot myself. Okay, where's the gun at? Let's see if the gun is registered to you. And if it's a minor, more likely it's not registered to you because it's stolen. Or they bought it off the gray market or black market.
Information will be made immediately available to law enforcement officials. No person other than a law enforcement officer or licensed security officer shall possess a firearm on state property, public schools, or public parks. The New Mexico Department of Health and the New Mexico Environmental Department shall develop a program to conduct wastewater testing for illicit substances, now particularly fentanyl, at all public schools. And we're likely to make that available to any other public entity and private entities that invite us in for such testing. The Children, Youth, and Families Department shall immediately suspend the Juvenile Detention Alternative Initiative and evaluate their current juvenile probation protocols. And what this means is that while we're really working hard, and we should, to redirect a young person's life out of crime and into a responsible environment. We want our kiddos to graduate from school. We want them to be safe. We want them to be good community members. But when one of these officers is involved in a gun violent situation, and we have a 12 or 13 or a 14-year-old with a firearm, the notion that there's no accountability here must end until we can figure out exactly what has gone wrong and what we can do better about it. So that is suspended during the term of this particular public health order and likely to extend, if necessary, into another one. The Department of Public Safety shall immediately dispatch additional officers and resources to Bernalillo County and work with the Albuquerque Police Department and Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office to determine the best use of that resources. Unlike the surge, which worked, it wasn't sustained. And the initial surge didn't have all of the operational impacts that it needed, lessons learned, to make sure that we were there in court and the prosecutions were maintained in a productive manner. Those things all addressed, and I should alert our new director that that was a problem in the past, and it's something that we're going to have to make sure that our resources are aligned, including prosecutorial resources, so that we don't let bad actors off the hook because we don't have the right people in the right place with the right information to pursue a prosecution.
Why is clear?
It sounds like they're gonna let anybody off the hook. It seems like they don't. It's a Democratic state. They let a lot of people off the hook. You got these programs to bridge, I guess, minors if they're probably first offenders. You're trying to get them to graduate high school, maybe get a better life. But you're suspending that program. That doesn't make any sense. If you want to make a difference, teach the kids to read, give them an education. You're trying to work with first offenders, apparently. But you're saying you're cutting that program. And then all resources directly to 2 cities. That's over the gunshot per capita. So everyone else, they could carry a gun. Everyone else could carry a gun. You making it easy for criminals to do their job. Because I have to worry about if I want to rob somebody. Now I don't have to worry about this law-abiding citizen carrying a gun. I could just rob them. Are you tracking the crime? You saying you're tracking the crime as far as gunshot. Are you going to track the increase of crime? Robberies. At gunpoint. Are you going to track that crime? Let's see how many times or how much robbery will increase. It's ludicrous. Her logic of her solving this problem, quote unquote, gun violence, because she think legal gun owners are committing gun violence, is asinine. It doesn't even make sense. And she's trying to fit a square problem in a round solution. It doesn't make sense.
Almost done, so we can stand for questions. The Department of Public Safety shall coordinate with local law enforcement agencies and district attorneys' offices to assist in the apprehension of individuals with outstanding arrest warrants. We've added another $10 million to that work. They're doing it. But I think we can leverage more productively across all these jurisdictions, and we have called on the U.S. Marshal's Office to do more. They are doing a ton. We want more, and we're asking AFT, DEA, FBI to all do their part, and I have sent yet another communication to the federal government, and I had a call with the director of the U.S. Marshal Service today that they must create a continued presence in New Mexico, given our gun violence and violent crime situations statewide. We will make sure that the order is broadly disseminated in Spanish and English and any other context, and make sure that the public knows exactly where we're headed. Last thing. We also have a declaration for public health emergency for our substance abuse problem, which is part and parcel. So it's making sure that we can draw down resources and apply those resources in every context possible so we can get our arms around this continuing threat to our own public safety, freedoms, way of life in this state. I appreciate that you're all going to help me with the leveraging of resources. I want to state one more time, they did not involve themselves in the drafting of this public health order and are likely not to agree with the totality of the first initial steps, but agree completely that smart leveraging of resources and the declaration of an emergency creates opportunities to work together in a more sustained and meaningful way. And if I didn't say that right, you're free to correct me, of course. Did I say it right?
That's not sustained. This is just like you want to be a dictator. You keep on saying they didn't help draft the people that's out on the street. They didn't help you draft this. Why wouldn't you ask the police chief? Why wouldn't you ask all these individuals, all these men, and they were all men, that's actually active duty? Why wouldn't you ask them, hey, what do you think about this? Instead, You want to be a tyrant and say, oh, we need to initiate executive order because I'm going to show you how to solve these problems. And you ain't never been out on the street nowhere. You probably don't know no ghetto. You don't know what these kids go through, but you trying to solve problems and you don't even know what's going on. Even with their drug crisis. What did Tracy say? Let me pull up Tracy. If I can find it. Tracy said, I think that was Tracy, that all this stuff is coming in from the border. Those guns come in from Central America, Mexico, and those guns come from United States government. You know what else comes from the United States government in Central America and Mexico? Fentanyl. I don't know how long you guys been tuning into my live stream, but fentanyl is actually produced, the binding agent is produced in China. China cuts them a deal in Mexico, and Mexico ships it in. That's why you shouldn't support China either. China has a war with America, and they're winning. She doesn't know. She really doesn't know. She doesn't have her ears to the ground. She don't know what the hell's going on. She's trying to be, oh, let me solve this problem. And you don't even know what the problem is. You don't know what the problem is. Really. You trying to fit a square problem in a round solution. I know I always talk about my kids when I talk about teaching them how to solve problems. The other day, we were talking about math stuff, you know, with my oldest son. He's really, really good in math. And I told him, you know, you're going to do much better. You'll do very well in college. I'm pretty sure he's going to be an engineer or something like that. You'll do very well in college if you read the pretext before you start doing the problem. You know how in math they get a couple of pages of how the problem or how this solution came about, like Bernoulli's equation, stuff like that. You know, how they came up with this equation. And then you will understand why you are using this equation. She hasn't read the problem yet. She doesn't know how this problem exists. She doesn't know it. That's why she's trying to, oh, I read this Taproot book and it says to solve this problem, you got to do this and this and this. No. Do you understand how this problem came about? What are you trying to solve? Why are you using this particular solution for this? Okay. She needs to know that. And she's trying to fit a square problem in a round solution. And it doesn't work. And she's a tyrant. Kathy said these representatives are overstepping their authority and working against Americans. Yes, they are. Overstepping their authority. If they were truly anti-gun, they will give up the government's gun. Thank you, Tracy. Yes, they will. How come you can have a gun and I can't? This is ludicrous. People are going to be defenseless. Thomas, Kelly, people are going to be defenseless. Who's protecting you from the government? Taylor McNair, thank you for just becoming a member. I don't have no sounds, but thank you. Thank you for the support. Chords of gratitude. Where I live in New Mexico is fairly quiet, rarely had violent crime, property crime, theft were high. Yeah, so chords of gratitude, she's talking about, I don't know how you feel about your mayor or your governor, but she's talking about these two cities that have over 1,000 per capita of gun violence. So I guess Albuquerque is one of them. That's one of the largest cities there. Robert Jordan says, does this mean the 15-year-old with the unregistered gun should carry it around in a lockbox or trigger lock on it? Robert Jordan, I know you try to be funny, but you know the unregistered gun owner is going to have it right here in the middle of their pants, on their back. They not, or in their book bag. If they 15, they probably got it in their book bag, right? They don't get it on safety. They're not following any of the laws.
Close enough? Okay, I'm going to make sure I don't misrepresent their work or their presence here. All right, I am available for questions.
Ken. Okay, I want to get a response from what Representative Lane had to say, in particular, alerting everything.
Did you see their faces? They look mad and well. They probably didn't get a chance to read her executive order. And then now you got us in this press conference about to shoot off questions, and you saying they may or may not agree. We didn't get to read, but what we're hearing is unconstitutional. We're probably going to get more crime just because of this particular law. Probably going to get more calls. Now, I don't know about violent crimes, but probably theft. You probably get higher rates of theft for sure. Violent crimes probably stay the same. It's not going to change anything.
Billions of revenue, the state is not funded meaningful criminal justice reform, including reckless pretrial release policies and behavioral health rehabilitation. What's your response to his criticism?
I think his criticism is fair in the context of whether or not we're getting enough of our policymakers to really understand the situation that I think we are currently in, which is incredibly dangerous. I have supported the minority leader, and I got a letter from all of the Republican members of both the state and the House and the Senate about pretrial detention. Well, I didn't need that letter, but I'm grateful for it when I introduced it over the past several years, and will continue to introduce it. I think following the federal system and having a rebuttable presumption that if it's a repeat and violent offender, that those folks should have no ability to be released pending that rebuttable debate about why they're not too dangerous to be held until the trial. I'll ask for that again, and I have asked for any number of criminal penalty enhancements. Some of them have gotten through. I've asked for any number of gun violence reforms. We've gotten many through the state legislature. I think it would be unfair not to thank them for their courage. And one last thing about that, I'm going to need all the local different jurisdictions to take seriously that they have tools at their disposal, including extreme risk protection orders, that not every jurisdiction, I think, takes very seriously. It's the law, and when someone requests that that be undertaken or evaluated, I would beseech every jurisdiction to do that. If you didn't see the CNN article that basically said, I will paraphrase, New Mexico's done good work, effective leadership, and all the evidence-based, reduction in gun violence policies. But they aren't actually utilized. Well, we should be utilizing all of those, and I'm always open to evidence-based strategies that I think will reduce gun violence, including, which they didn't ask for, but I will put on the call, I will ask for another ban on assault weapons, and I should note that not everyone sitting at this table will support that idea either. But it's something that I believe needs to be done around the country, and I hope it gets done in New Mexico. I don't know,
she's the test dummy right now. She's asking for a ban on assault weapons, and of course, all these individuals probably have assault weapons. If they're a police officer, I'm pretty sure they got a good gun collection. They go on the gun range and they probably use their assault weapons. You're a police officer. You're not afraid of guns because you know how to be responsible as a gun owner.
Evan, what my odds are today, we'll have to wait and see, but they're going to be on my call.
How will this gun ban, how will it be enforced, and what will be the penalties? However.
So those are very complicated questions, and we are.
Look at his face. He like, okay, ask how are they going to be enforced? Because you ain't never told me anything. None of these guys look happy. None of these guys like this B done overstepped her boundaries. That's what he looking like. Like, oh my God, how is this going to be enforced?
Working with our Department of Public Safety and our own attorneys and the DAs. In this context, I've directed a civil order, so I basically suspended your ability to do that. In this context, we're likely dealing with misdemeanors, and so 4 misdemeanors, if you did it 4 times, is a felony. They're hard to enforce. What I would like to be able to say to the general public, that it's easy to enforce. They're all an automatic felony that go with automatic jail time. That would take a very specific change in the law that doesn't exist. The point here is that if everyone did it and I wasn't legally challenged, you would have fewer risks on the street. And I could safely to say to every New Mexican, and particularly those folks living in Albuquerque and Bernalillo County.
The cognitive dissonance in this person. Like, she's saying that you have like no risk. If everyone follows the order, you have no risk. But it's like, where do you think this violence are coming from? You think they're coming from? I know I keep on repeating this. The people that are committing these crimes, they are not legal gun owners. It's like, do you understand that? And that's probably why they looking at her like, she doesn't even have a clue what's going on. She just wrote this bill without their consent, without their input, and they're like the people that's on the street.
I believe that you're safer for the next 30 days. We'll have to wait and see, but that would be basically it.
No, you're not. I'm telling you, you're not going to be safe. If you went from, oh, I could carry a concealed weapon, and people in the back of their mind, if I was a criminal, in the back of my mind, oh, I don't know, they got on certain types of clothes. I don't know if I could, get one over on them because they might have a concealed weapon. I'm not going to risk that. But now you're saying, oh, this person is probably a law-abiding citizen. They're not going to have a gun. So I'm going to take that risk. And steal them, rob them, kill them, possibly, jack them for their car. All kinds of stuff that could happen. She's living in la la land. That's what it sounds like.
The example. And I don't think that APD could arrest anyone under the current situation because they can't enforce civil orders. So if you're out under this order, if it stands, you notice I said if, and I think I've warned everyone that we expect a challenge. Probably while you're writing this, we're getting a challenge, and that's the way it should work. But I have to take a tough, direct stand where basically I'm just ignoring the fact that we lost an 11-year-old, another child. And every single text call that I get every single day, people with guns on the trails, people with guns and kids in their cars, kids with guns in the parking lots at school, kids with guns at our parks, kids with guns in downtown Albuquerque, adults with guns shooting each other in downtown Albuquerque. And I was horrified to learn that 2 weekends ago, somebody with an automatic weapon was shooting at many other individuals with handguns who appeared to be underage. I don't know, but they were just shooting at each other. I don't know how anyone didn't lose their life or get hurt in that incident. I don't know how that person had my cell phone. But this is the climate that they're responding to. They're not safe. So the state police aren't bound by those same issues and are required to enforce any of the public orders or emergency orders that I have the power to execute. So in having more police presence, assuming there's not a challenge, or there's a challenge and we win, we'd be the only place in America where that happened. So Holly, high bar, let's go. They could make that arrest on that misdemeanor. That's how it would be enforced.
And you wouldn't be sending more officers. There would be the same amount of state police officers, you know?
She sounds stupid. She sound like she's on La La Land. You trying to initiate this gun protection order or executive order from legal gun owners. It's for their protection. And now it sounds like you have a kid problem that have illegal guns. It's not the adults. Sound like it's kids, like a mini Chicago maybe, that have access to weapons. And more likely they're illegal weapons. And you don't understand the problem that you're trying to solve. Your solution is not going to solve your problem.
To send more, and they're working on those resource allocations, and the person who's going to make sure that we can do that productively is our new director, former Chief of State Police Pete Casetas.
But there's no number on how many.
No, we're working on that, but I'd like to refer to it as a significant presence. The nearly 200 million that has been made available for both recruitment and retention, we hope is a significant effort. We've got more police officers. We don't have 1,000 more police officers. So when we do these efforts, it does create a strain in other jurisdictions. But if we manage better, and we send a very clear and strong message that what's happening in our state, and particularly today in the largest city, is unacceptable, we believe that we create safer situations around the state. So that's our goal here. Maddie?
You sent direct messages yesterday to Mayor Tim Keller and AG Merrick Garland. Have you heard anything back today from either of those?
I have not heard back from the U.S. Attorney General. I continue to send letters. I did call the White House and speak to Tom Pettis about this issue, because I'm not going to stop until we get the resources that we need. That's my job. Mayor Keller and I have had a conversation today. He stands ready to assist in whatever way, and I think the fact that we've got the police chief who is candid about the things that we could do better in the state police effort, things that we could do better through our juvenile probation and parole, is a strong indication that it's going to take all of us working together, and I got that commitment from the mayor today. And I want to make clear, the mayor has not been in the way. The mayor is not telling us not to do anything. But we have to create a standard where all of us are feeling, I hope, clarity that this has to change, using every tool we can until we've exhausted every idea, every tool, every strategy, every legislative aspect, every bit of it, all together. It cannot stand, and I think that that's the mayor's position as well. He doesn't have the same statewide powers that I do. I can do this. And it also allows the mayor, which I suggested he do, request for emergency funds to apply them through his experts and expertise.
I have to look up to see what she's talking about as far as this emergency, what clarify an emergency. You could clarify, it sounds like she could clarify anything or qualify anything as an emergency, which doesn't really make any sense. And she used the word power. She has the power to do these types of things. The mayor doesn't have the power. To me, this is tyranny. This is tyranny. And it's sad that she thinks she's doing the right thing. And to me, it also sounds like she's trying to get her numbers to zero. She wants a perfect state. Zero gun violence. That's what she wants. She wants that number down to zero.
And his police jurisdictions in a meaningful way.
Austin? Yeah, I just want to clarify the penalty for violating a civil order. Would it be unlawful carrying of a deadly weapon? You refer to a misdemeanor.
Well, I mean, the reason I did that is because it's lawful in New Mexico to have firearms. So in my suspending that, it's not like I can create a new law or a standard. So what I can do is when you violate a public health order, it's the lowest level of violation. And that is an enforcement issue. But again, if this is upheld, and if no one challenges it, I'm happy not to have a challenge to all the people that are thinking about it. The point is this: we better have a debate about what's necessary to reduce the number of particularly illegal firearms and our ability to go after bad actors. A lot of these bad actors,
particularly illegal firearms. So you're trying to suspend legal firearms because you think the illegal firearm possessor is going to follow that rule. I know I keep on saying the same thing, but it doesn't make sense. Does this make sense to you?
steal legitimately purchased firearms. There are too many. We have to do more. It should horrify every American and every New Mexican.
We don't have too many. Now you making shit up. We don't have too many. I don't think a person can have too many guns. As long as they got them locked up, you only got two hands. So if you got two guns on you that you're carrying, that's fine. Now, and if all the other weapons is locked in keys in the safe place, who are you to say is too many guns? You're thinking that people are stealing from a legal gun owner, or they're breaking into a gun shop and stealing them. No, that's not how they get guns. That's why I said she don't even know where the problem is coming from. She doesn't know.
That so many young people and so many individuals with no training, with reckless criminal behaviors, are openly carrying firearms in our communities. I'm horrified.
Factor is by far the best food.
You should be horrified. Only reason why you should be horrified is because you don't understand what's going on in your own state.
Yes, all the examples you cited are crimes. Kids shooting at other kids, shooting from cars. So what's the value of the civil order? Why not just do better law enforcement?
Both. The value of the order is that
Excellent question. Why don't you do better law enforcement? But Pete, this answer. This answer is crazy.
it gives me three things. One, it says it's a statewide issue and it's a message to everyone to start leveraging their resources and arresting people. Two, the jurisdictions come at this, including with the DOJ restrictions, differently, without the leveraging and the additional resources, arresting, and where do they go? We gotta make sure that everyone is bumping up their services. It's a message to the Metropolitan Detention Center. It's a message to the HMOs. You better figure out treatment. We have been sort of stalled out, to your point. This order basically says, stop stalling out, and to your point, just arrest everyone. Well, I also have to have the ability, I can't arrest everyone. There are literally too many people to arrest.
Well,
This would allow us,
If someone's got a concealed carry permit in Albuquerque walking down a public street, they're not gonna get arrested.
I can make the point that maybe they should be. And this is the point.
You see why she's a tyrant? I can make the point maybe they should be because they got a concealed weapon and they're licensed to carry. She's a tyrant.
I'm willing to do anything and everything within a shred of evidence-based effort. Because if you're not horrified that on any street corner in too many cities in New Mexico, there is someone with a gun sticking out of their waist or their belt. And I'll tell you, if you're a young person, you're not allowed to have a handgun.
Well, it's a crime already.
I got it, but we won't be able.
It's a crime. Look, better law enforcement. If you see a kid if you see a kid with the gun, hey, where's the police at? Where's the police? If you actually see people with guns, kids, she's saying these kids is open and carrying their guns. And they're saying, oh, look at me, I got a gun. So where's the police force at? But you want to take away people's guns and you think these kids are going to abide by the rules. They don't abide by the rules anyway. They do not abide by the rules. So why are you trying to initiate an executive order? That doesn't make any sense. Once again, you're trying to put a square problem in a round solution. It's not going to fit. It's not going to work.
Able to arrest all of them. So imagine, just in a perfect world, if this was upheld, it gives all of these police officers the ability to focus on the real criminals.
Last follow-up.
Yeah.
But
your point is valid.
You took an oath to the Constitution. Isn't it unconstitutional to say you cannot exercise your carry license?
With one exception, and that is if there's an emergency, and I've declared an emergency for a temporary amount of time, I can invoke additional powers. No constitutional right, in my view, including my oath, is intended to be absolute. There are restrictions on free speech. There are restrictions on my freedoms. In this emergency, this 11-year-old and all these parents who have lost all these children, they deserve my attention to have the debate about whether or not in an emergency we can create a safer environment. Because what about their constitutional rights? I took an oath to uphold those too. And if we ignore this growing problem without being bold, I've said to every other New Mexican, your rights are subrogated to theirs. and they are not, in my view.
Wait a minute, though. You're talking about crimes. There are already laws against the crimes, so how are their rights?
But again, if I'm unsafe, who's standing up for that right? If this climate is so out of control, somebody should do something. I'm doing as much as I know to do.
And you're doing wrong. You don't understand how you got to that problem. You don't understand the problem. That's why you can't fix it, because you don't understand it. Whoever that reporter is, he hit the hammer on the nail. All that she talked about are crimes. Criminals are committing crimes. It has nothing to do with illegal gun ownership. She's trying to reverse it and say, oh, reason why we're taking away the guns from the illegal people so we could know the illegal gun owners. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
Madam Governor, do you really think that criminals are going to hear this message and not carry a gun in Albuquerque on the streets for 30 days?
No. But here's what I do think. It's a pretty resounding message to everybody else in that community to report a crime, to tell us what's going on, to aid law enforcement, to do something different. I'll tell you what people think, and it's not true. So, Chief, thank you for your work. And, Chief, thank you for your work. How many of you have been told by a business or a citizen, it's all of you, by the way, that they call or they ask for help and no one will show up or do anything about a crime, particularly even a violent crime? How many times have you heard that? Once every day? 10 times every week? Well, I hear it every day. So if this encourages the public to help us create a safer environment, I'm in. So it does do that, and people want action. That's my belief.
No, all you're going to do is piss off people. You're making shit up. All you're going to do is piss off people. You're saying you trying to get the community involved. You trying to say all this other thinking of stuff that you think what you're trying to do, but you're not going to do that. You're like not in touch with reality. And you're apparently you're not in touch with the people.
They want every possible action. And I'm doing everything I know to do. And I think showing a little courage, even when the clarity of that courage will be challenged, is worth the fight.
And Madam Governor, kind of a follow-up with that. Earlier today, APD held a press conference, and there was a question asked about keeping criminals behind bars.
Mm-hmm.
Is there going to be a push from you in order to keep these repeat offenders, to keep these folks behind bars and stopping that, or a push for judges to enact some sort of order or keep them from having pretrial detention?
There's nothing in the way in which they're currently required, including every due process aspect, that prevents them from holding a dangerous person behind bars or a repeat offender. So yes, I expect that to occur. And yes, we expect there to be more prosecutions. And yes, we expect there to be the appropriate right accountability measures, including jail time. We expect all of that. It is time for every piece of the law enforcement public safety environment to work better together. I don't have to be the only one talking.
You know, I think it's important that we recognize there are certain things, we agree on a lot of things. There's some things we don't agree on. But I think that's the beauty of this, is we can still all sit here and recognize that we have to work together. And I invite any help that we could get in Albuquerque from any entity. And some of the things that we spoke about is like, how do we get the right resources out to the Metro Detention Center? We know that that is the largest mental health facility, drug treatment center in the state of Mexico. And we know that we need to keep more people in there, but we can't keep everybody forever, especially with the level of crimes that they commit. Eventually their due process happens and they're released. And it does us no good to release them.
Hosting barbecues, parties, and get-togethers has made...
Well, she talked, well, let me play this. She talked for what? This was an hour-long video. And before somebody interjected, she talked about 40 minutes. So anyway, that basically was the highlight. She's a tyrant. She's a tyrant. And she wants you to believe that she's working for the good of the public. But as I said before, and some of you in the audience mentioned, Albuquerque or New Mexico is the test state. They're trying to see how far they could push your civil freedoms or take away your civil freedoms before you buck up to the government. That's what they're trying to do. And that's called tyranny. So who's going to protect you from a tyrant like this? This lady right here, who's going to protect you from her? And if you notice, all of these guys, I don't know what they're saying, but she's doing the most of the talking. But anyway, all of these guys are got that stone face, like, why did she? They probably didn't even know what she was going to do. She called this press conference a news conference on gun violence. And this is the first time this is the first time they're hearing the details of it. She probably handed them a paper coming in, and they didn't get a chance to read none of it. She's drafting off of what she feels and not reality. That's how this executive came about. Executive order came about, because it's off her feelings. You should feel horrified. Okay, I feel sad that kids, or that gunfight happened in front of kids. That's kind of sad, and unfortunately no one was injured. That's very fortunate. But mortified and horrified, yeah, I would feel horrified if they called me and said my kids was trying to shoot them up, bang bang, or rob somebody. Yeah, that's horrific. But I don't feel horrified if you're telling me there's only 3 gunshots wounds per month. I don't even think she said homicides or deaths. She said gunshots. I had to go back to what she said, but 3 gunshots, minors, and she was talking about minors per month. And I'm thinking, like, okay, that's not a lot. That's not a lot. So sorry for these injuries, or maybe death, or whatever happened to these kids. But if we think about the grand scheme of things, it's really very minuscule. And she's saying this problem got out of hand. But she's a tyrant. She already mentioned that she's the main person or she's the only person that could have done this, passed this executive order. And she didn't ask any opinion of her people, police chief, people over the Children's Juvenile Detention Center. She didn't ask any of their advice. And they're the ones that's out on the street. If that's not narcissistic, I don't know what the hell is. Speaking of a tyrant, we could talk about people in the past that were tyrants. One in particular, Stalin. I don't know if you guys know about Stalin. A lot of people know about Stalin when he hooked up with Hitler. But he was a tyrant before then. Let me see if I could find this picture so I could show you. He was a this is Stalin. I guess that's when he was a young person. But yeah, Stalin, he actually killed his political opponents. He was an atheist. He didn't believe in God. And he was a Marxist. Now, do these words sound familiar to you? Stalin, the tyrant, was an atheist, a Marxist, and he belonged to the Socialist Democratic Party. Social Democratic Party, and he was involved. He got elected to or appointed to Secretary General, and Lenin, I guess he was over that party. He ended up dying in 1924. So Stalin took over. And they said he was really devious about his takeover. He had his enemies killed. One in particular, a guy named Trotsky. He exiled him, and then he assassinated him in 1940. He murdered millions of people. Now, and I'm not talking about the Holocaust, when he linked up with Hitler. I'm not talking about that. Prior to the Holocaust, he produced a 5-year plan back in 1929, and it was like a sharecropping plan. It was in Russia, where they was trying to do this great expansion. So he decided that he was going to impose these, I guess, yield production limits, or not even limits, or metrics on these farm people, because he's trying to wipe out all the peasants. He called them peasants. And it was a 5-year plan where if they didn't meet the sharecropping limits or their goals, the sharecropping goals, they just take all their crops. So he engineered a famine, and it said it was believed that he killed 7 million people. Stalin. This is before he hooked up with Hitler. 7 million people in Ukraine. I think it was yesterday I said, has anybody heard of Ukraine before Joe Biden and Hunter Biden? And I guess, a lot of people don't know about Stalin's history until he got with Hitler. And he also assassinated, like I told you, he assassinated about a prominent, anybody that was against him. He put him on trial and assassinated him. Just anybody. So he was a tyrant. He killed all the Red Army. He was trying to purge any officers that was against him. And they said he killed about 80% of his generals, and 50% of the colonels was executed. He was a tyrant. And that's what he did to Russia. He persecuted church people, clergymen, arrested them for propaganda because he was an atheist. Does this sound any familiar, like any type of party to you? You guys put it in the chat. Does Stalin sound like anybody today? Anybody today? And he died in 1953. Too bad nobody killed him. He should have met his demise, but it just said he died. And you know, Stalin was Hitler's right-hand man. And we're talking about tyrants and tyranny. But you're taking away a person's right, Second Amendment right. That's the first thing to go. First thing to go before the government could do anything to you, because you have no protection. Second Amendment right is really not to protect you from Joe Schmo down the street. It's for you to be protected from tyrants like Lajun Grisham, from tyrants like her, this lady. Yeah, I believe so. Stalin, I think I read, it's not in the insert that I read, but I believe Stalin did kill his own son. That's what tyrants do. Kill their own people and claim it's in the name of something. He don't believe in God. You think you are God, basically. And you're the way and the truth and the light. You worship yourself, which is a dangerous thing. And I bet you anything, this lady is hungry for power. Because how dare you? You have all these guys on your panel that's been working in law enforcement for years, and you draw up an executive order and not ask their opinion. You're a piece of work. Anyway, that's enough about that. That is enough about that. Let's get to Chicago. Let me see if I can. Chicago Mayor Johnson calls on Adelman to find some space for the immigrants. Mayor Johnson calls the aldermen to find locations for base camps or other migrant housing because they're trying to move them out of the police department. Our last live stream, or the stream before last, I showed you a picture of the police department and how full they were. They were packed in there like sardines in the lobby. So if you happen to come into the police department asking for help or trying to get to wherever you're trying to get to in the police department, you can't, because you got to step over migrants. They're acting as if they're a homeless shelter, which is really ludicrous to me. They just need to close the borders. Stop accepting people in and close the borders. That's how you're going to fix this problem. And not only you need to close the borders, you need to ship some of these people back. Illegal migrants. We call them migrants now. I guess we're trying to be nice, but they're illegal immigrants. Remember, they used to call them illegal aliens. They used to be called illegal aliens. I don't know if you guys remember that. But they were illegal aliens, like they were from outer space somewhere. But they need to close the borders. That's the only way you're going to fix this engineered problem. That they caused this because they want to be a safe haven for people. Oh, it's inhumane. They're coming from a war-torn country. That's their favorite line. It's like a regurgitated line. They're coming from a war-torn country. And you see all these men coming over here. Ain't no women and children. It's a bunch of men. Bunch of men about to take some construction jobs from you. Anyway, let me stop. This is what Chicago, CBS News, this is what they have to say about it.
CBS 2 political reporter Chris Ty is live at City Hall with...
Let me slow it down. I had it on 1.5 speed.
What we have learned and how it's being received. Chris.
Good afternoon, Jim and Marie. Undignified. That is how Mayor Johnson describes putting migrants in police stations. He says it's a problem that he inherited. He
didn't inherit that problem. They weren't putting migrants in the police station before you got there. You lying. Why he lying?
Just the last few minutes, CBS 2 has confirmed from a source that the mayor has been having a series of Zoom meetings this afternoon with members of City Council. And he has said to them, I want to hear a location or 2 or 3 from each of you in your ward that could absorb one of these base camps, or at the very least be a brick and mortar structure that could absorb some of these migrants that are coming to Chicago. In fact, they've learned just today another round of buses are headed here as we speak. Now, there's a headwind in all of this from City Council, members of City Council, headwinds that say, I don't want any more migrants in my backyard. So that's the backdrop here. And here's the situation. So much of this still remains murky. How many of these tents could pop up around the city? How would they be paid for? How many people would stay there? How long would they stay? Earlier today, the mayor offered some wide lens perspective on this, and we heard from one councilman who's very much opposed to plans that brings more migrants to his ward.
We've identified multiple locations around the city that can be suitable to treat the families and individuals who by law are seeking asylum constitutionally. We've increased our resources to bring.
He used the word by law who is seeking asylum constitutionally, but they came in here illegally. You're trying to create a law, ignore your citizens. Americans are last. Americans are last for these people. This guy right here, the tyrant governor in New Mexico, Mayor Adams. Your people are last. Joe Biden, your people are last. You don't care. You don't give a shit. 1, 2 shits about American people. Because you're trying to act like they're citizens of the United States. And they're not. They're illegal immigrants. And Joe Biden has the nerve to be giving illegal immigrants, I think $2,500 a month. A $2,500 a month stipend. I think that's what I read. I have to go, I'm going to find it while he's talking. But isn't that a slap in the face? You don't even give people here that's on aid $2,500 a month. And not to say they deserve to get $2,500 a month. But why would you give somebody Joe Schmo that don't even have any voting powers, that's not a citizen of the United States, have not contributed to the United States, came over here illegally, $2,500 a month. And you give the people that were displaced from their homes, that was burnt down in Maui, $700 per family. A one lump sum of $700, and their home was burnt down to the ground. This is the administration that you voted for. These kind of nut jobs. He's 47 years old and trying to wear a mohawk. You're 47, dude. You got a gray beard. Cut that shit off.
Another agency on board to be able to help resettle these families, to move them into permanent housing faster.
There was not a clear plan. You know you have the buses coming.
I like Alderman Anthony Beale. He's straight and to the point. I think this is the other guy. I think he's over the Hyde Park ward, but we saw him a couple of days ago. But yeah, he's straight and to the point. You didn't have a plan. You just busting people over here, and you saying, okay, they're welcome here, and then you want us to deal with it.
Get prepared. There was no preparation, and you know that they were coming. And so now we're having to clean the mess up. At what expense?
What would your residents say about them coming to your ward?
Well, right now I only have about a dozen, and hopefully we keep it that way.
You don't want 1,012, you just want 12.
We will not take 1,000 migrants here in the Ninth Ward.
13,000.
He wasn't playing. He said we will not take 1,000 of migrants in the Ninth Ward. Now call it what you want to call it. And what are you going to do about that, Mayor Brandon Johnson? You trying to elect everybody to agree with you. They got a bleeding heart for migrants and these demon ass kids. What you gonna do about it?
1,000 migrants have come to Chicago since last September. They are spread through 16 stations around the city, places, shelters where they can spend nights with their family. But there are untold numbers staying inside Chicago police departments. And that is what the mayor is underlining, saying that has to stop. And with cold weather coming quickly, it's a problem that he says is very much front burner. One other point here, Jim and Marie, our source telling us in just the last few minutes, the city, these are numbers just revealed by the mayor to city council. The city has spent about $116 million so far on this matter. Chicago Public Schools, $1.5 million of their own dollars. A lot of moving parts, these conversations going on right now. As we learn more information throughout the afternoon and evening, of course, we'll bring it to you. For now, live at City Hall, Chris Ty, CBS 2 News.
Chris, thank you for those breaking details.
Welcome to...
Yeah, they tired of your crap, Mayor Brandon Johnson, and you are not doing anything to say, okay, enough is enough. You're saying that you're a safe haven, but enough is enough. Let me show you this video.
Unacceptable.
This video is in the police department. It says Chicago police officers are fed up.
The dirt and grime on the ground outside here
This is the police department.
is real. This is the working conditions of the men and women working in the 12th district. And as you enter, this is what you're greeted with. Yep. Good morning. This is absolutely unacceptable and ridiculous working conditions. OSHA doesn't want to do anything about it. The mayor's office doesn't want to do anything about it. Nobody seems to want to do anything about it. City Hall doesn't look like this. Fire departments don't look like this. Every city facility doesn't look like this except for police departments. I can't even walk through the floor to the other side. And I'm not blaming these people. I'm blaming the city for this. Right, tucked away in the corner there. Yeah, well, hell with it. I can get there, right? As you can imagine, even get out the gate over here.
What is that? Did you guys see that? What is this? They got cones and stuff up this, what is it, a kid gate, so they won't go past a certain point. This is ridiculous. This is what they have to deal with your mayor. Your mayor, Brandon Johnson. They want to support open border policies for illegal immigrants. Illegal immigrants. Real Estate Jay Jones. Hey, Jay. He said, same man who said large gatherings when people were out there robbing people. You can't demonize the kids. These are large gatherings. It's not mob like actions. These are large gatherings. Robert Jordan said all these mayors, governors, and senators have to do is tell the president this has to stop and we won't support your open border policy. Apparently, Mayor Eric Adams of New York City cried for help. He's been waving that white flag for a couple of months now. He hasn't received any federal help. It's falling on deaf ears. They don't hear him. They don't hear him at the White House.
The gate over here to go over there. Ridiculous. Stay tuned. This is one station. I'm going to go on a little morning tour. It's more of a dormitory style setup. Got to get the kids ready for school, you know. CPS needs those tax dollars so they can steal it and not do anything. They certainly are more comfortable in the 12th district. There's not as many of them, but it's still not what you would call a professional working environment.
Where they get the suitcases from? That's what. So we gave them suitcases. They get an education. Do they understand regular English? One thing I would like to know, okay, do you have a translator at the schools that these kids are going to? They are receiving tax dollars, but why? They're not citizens. I mean, how long are we supposed to support? Is this even sustainable? Supporting something like this? And no one sees the problem with it. Nobody's saying like, oh my God, this is horrific. Finally, Brandon Johnson said, oh, this is inhumane. But so you're gonna build some tents, a concentration. That's what their plan is. Their plan, y'all probably didn't understand. Their plan is to build a concentration camp. They're gonna have a bunch of tents erected on the street, and it's gonna be gated, and you're not gonna be able to leave or, you know, come in the tent unless you work at the facility. Does that make any sense? Then they got all this drawing on the floor, probably gang drawing. They got their own tents just on the line somewhere. I guess it's some guys sitting on the line. And then, you know, Chicago gets real cold, so they have to worry about that. Talking about F the police in their own language. But you staying there. This is the kind of stuff that we're supporting. We support, oh, they're running from crimes, a war-torn country. These people need our help. These are war-torn countries, communist countries. And they write on the ground, F the police. And they're over here illegally. They're over here. Speaking of illegal immigrants, this is our next story. I don't know. You guys heard about the guy that escaped from the county jail in Pennsylvania? See if I can find his name. There we go. No, that's not his name. It is. This guy escaped it from the county jail. And it's their 10th day of this manhunt.
Turning now to the urgent manhunt for that escaped convicted murderer in Pennsylvania. On the run now for 10 days. He was caught on camera crab walking up a wall to escape. The community on edge as hundreds search for him. Morgan Norwood is in Chester, Pennsylvania with the latest. Good morning, Morgan.
Hey, good morning to you, Stephanie. Authorities believe they have Danilo Cavalcante somewhat surrounded, that as they continue to pack on the pressure, ramp up the visibility here in Longwood Gardens, at some point, he'll reveal himself.
This morning, the manhunt for escaped murderer Danilo Cavalcante entering its 10th day. With no sign of the elusive escapee, officers swarming an area near Longwood Gardens, some with guns drawn as they surround an 8-square-mile stretch near where Cavalcante was last seen on Thursday, the 9th confirmed sighting thus far.
We're going to capture him. It's just a matter of time.
As authorities look to close in, the prison guard officials say was in the observation tower the day Cavalcante broke out of the Chester County facility, now fired. Investigators say the 18-year veteran at the prison failed to see the daring escape. But surveillance cameras caught it all. Watch as Cavalcante scales a brick wall at the prison's recreation yard before eventually making a break from the facility. Authorities say Cavalcante's latest location shows he's backtracked, having previously been seen on trail cameras on the other side of the gardens. Authorities allowing access to the Search Command Center, where they vet tips from the community, pinpointing every sighting.
What I'm thinking is he's somewhere in here, and I don't want him slipping through anywhere. Okay.
And police say Cavalcante is considered dangerous. They add that he's quite elusive and pretty skilled at hiding from police, that in his native Brazil, he hid in the jungle to avoid a murder arrest. Those same skills likely helping him here in Pennsylvania.
He was wanted for murder in Brazil, and he killed somebody here. But our borders are secure. They go through this system of checks and balances, but he's over here. He came in here through some type of illegal. You guys didn't check him. He's over here, and he's killing people. And now he's running from you guys. Where he's gonna go, I don't know, but it's saying the daughter of a woman killed by Pennsylvania prison escapee Danilo Cavalcante told police he said he was going to do something bad to their lives. He killed his ex-girlfriend, and he stabbed her in front of her kids. So he was convicted last month. Why they didn't deport him, nobody knows why they didn't deport him. But they've been looking for him for a minute. And he said he was going to kill her. They said they think he's trying to go to Mexico, but we don't know. But yeah, he killed a mother in front of her 2 kids. And he's over here illegally. That's not the only story we've heard about illegal immigrants killing somebody. There was another one that we were talking about a few months ago where a girl was she was down on her luck and she rented her trailer out, a room in her trailer out to a guy, and he killed her. He strangled her with a phone cord, and he was over here illegal. I forget what the young lady's name is, but he was a nut job too. So they're coming over here. That's why I said all these men, we see a lot of men over here that's coming over here. And you're saying, oh, they're from a war-torn country. And it's a bunch of young men bucking up to the police, robbing and killing people. And not to say they're all like that, but there should be a system of checks and balances before they come over here. They shouldn't be over here illegally. And if they find out they entered the border illegally, they should ship them back. And I don't mean give them a free ride. No, ship them back, whatever the closest border is, not in the US. How you got here, over here, you didn't get over here on the Americans' dime, so bye-bye. You might say, Chawanne, that's so inhumane, but did they ask to come over here? No. You're being inhumane to American people when you just say, hey, we got an open border policy. And they're not communicating. All these other countries are not communicating with the US saying, hey, you know, we got another ship coming over. They're leaving their country. They know they're leaving their country, escaping their country, and they're not doing nothing about it. But that's what we got to deal with. Coffee 19. It'll be even worse if they take Biden off the ticket and put Harris on there. If she becomes president, folks won't be criticized. Folks won't be able to criticize her at all for fear of being called racist and sexist. Yeah, the only people that would be able to criticize Kamala Harris is Black women. And then Black women, if you criticize Kamala, you hate. How you gonna hate on a Black queen? Yeah, Kamala would be the worst ticket. You talking about, oh girl, what's her name? Lajun Grisham, governor of New Mexico, is a tyrant. Talking about tyranny. Just let Kamala get the hold of executive order power. Can you imagine that? Jim McQueen, how is the leader of the Proud Boys, whom isn't even a racist, by the way, is Black, is facing 30 years in prison for what? Being at a protest, but these thugs get away with this crap. Jim, I don't even think the leader of the Proud Boys was there. I don't even think he was attending the January 6th rally. I don't think he was there. But since he's the leader, they convicted him, and it's sick. It's sick. You can't protest. You call January 6th a riot and the uprising against democracy, but Antifa burning down buildings. Is that a riot? Is that a threat against our democracy? They burn down, what do you call it? Stores, small businesses. But it's not a threat against democracy. It's not inhumane. I wanted to show you guys this. This is a threat against democracy right here. You guys know who this is? That's a threat against the 3 women hugging each other. Y'all can't make no babies. Y'all can't make no damn babies, and y'all up there hugging each other. 3 lesbians. That's a threat against democracy. That's a threat against civilization. They think they doing something. This lady right here, I thought it was this one was the leader with the hair to the side, but I guess it's her. She's the leader. She bought a bunch of houses. She paid them to. They're the only ones that benefit from BLM. But you don't see no jail time from them. They proved that they embezzled money. They didn't do nothing with the community. They probably went against all the standards for nonprofit organization as far as how you should spend your money. They should be under investigation, but they're not. But instead, you got Donald Trump under investigation, like he committed a crime because he questioned the democracy. Speaking of Donald Trump, you know, he was in Iowa. This is Iowa State University. He was at a football game. He had to be in vain. Yeah, they love him. They love him. People love Donald Trump. But, you know, the Democrats, they got to. A lot of people pull all the stops against Donald Trump to make you believe he's a racist and he's not for the American people. I don't know if you guys remember her, Angela Stanton. She was running for representative in Georgia. I think she lost. I don't think she won. But how I became familiar with her, she was on the Breakfast Club. And of course, she ate them up because they tried to debate gender ideology with her. And she was explaining to them, hey, I have a gay son. Or no, he was transsexual or something like that. And she told him, yeah, you're a boy. And when you get out of my house, you can be whatever the hell you want to be. And they try to say, oh, this is your son. You should support him. Yeah, I do support him after he's 18. I mean, she wasn't playing. And they tried to debate her and pull, but this is blah, blah, blah. No, after he's 18 and out of my house, he can do whatever the hell he want to do. And they didn't like that answer. But she ate their asses up. This is her. She talking about Donald Trump.
People accuse this man of being a racist. And I just want to say that I met President Donald Trump working on criminal justice reform. I too was one of the ones that said, no, I don't want to Go talk to that man. I don't know him. He hates black people. That's what they said. And so they said, well, Angela, he's working on criminal justice reform. You have a story. Many of you may or may not know that I served time in a Georgia state prison. And while I was serving time in that prison,
Oh, my bad. My bad.
I want to say this because he's working on criminal justice reform. You have a story. Many of you may or may not know that I served time in a Georgia state prison. And while I was serving time in that prison, I was pregnant. And when it was time for me to deliver my baby, I was transported to a hospital here in Georgia by a police officer, and I was chained to a bed, and I was forced to give birth to my baby with a sheriff watching for a nonviolent crime. Also separated from my family for a nonviolent crime. But you know, the Democrats said we only supposed to fight for the family separation at the border. They forgot all about the family separation in the border.
You hear that? Family separation at the border. They don't care about you because you in the border. Americans, she said she delivered her baby chained up for a nonviolent crime. She couldn't even deliver her baby. She had handcuffs on. And many of you might say, oh, she did the crime. She got to pay the time. Have you ever delivered a child? She wasn't going to get up and walk out anywhere. Come on now. And she was separated from her baby. A nonviolent crime.
They want Trump to apologize for the CP5, but they ain't demanded that Joe Biden apologize for the 94 crime bill. But that's not
what? Preach. This is my girl right here.
Something else. I had a story. They told me that this man was a racist, but I had a story, and I knew that if I could use my story to convince this man that there was a need to reform our criminal justice system, then I would do that. I wasn't going to be worried about emotions. I wasn't going to be worried about the media. I wasn't going to worry about the naysayers. I was going to go in with my story and see if I could make a difference. I found myself sitting in front of President Trump in the Oval Office, and I shared my story. This is the man that they told me was a racist. I don't know. I'm scared to death. Is he going to hang me? I don't know. Is he going to call the KKK the way that the media has portrayed it? I'm in a danger zone. Just so happened that he heard my story. Not only did he pass the First Step Act, but he also made it illegal for them to chain women to the bed during their childbirth. This white man that they told me was a racist, they told me he hated black people. So not only did he just sign one of the most historic forms of criminal justice reform legislation to ever hit this nation, overturning the 94 crime bill that massively incarcerated black America, freeing nearly 20,000 people to this day. The First Step Act. I sat in the Oval Office with a lot of criminal justice reform advocates. I saw Kim Kardashian.
And correction, it's actually 30,000. It's a little bit over 30,000. 30,000 people were freed because of that First Step Act bill. And most of whom were black people, black men in particular.
On the front page, taking her pictures. I saw Alice Johnson. I saw Louis Reed. I saw Van Jones. I saw Jessica Jackson. I saw, what's her name? Vivica Fox. I saw Isaiah Washington. But I don't see any of them here today. A lot of people want to take a lot of credit for being criminal justice reform experts, criminal justice reform advocates, but to tell the truth, you didn't free nobody. Trump did. Kim Kardashian had the nerve to put up a tweet to say free Gunna. Gunna is a YSL rapper tied to the Young Thug case, charged with RICO, the same DA, the same charges. You put up a tweet and say free a known gangster in Atlanta, Georgia, but you won't put up a tweet and say free President Trump.
Right. That's that fakeness.
And the only reason you getting any credit for freeing anybody is because President Donald J. Trump signed the papers. As a criminal justice reform advocate, somebody that's grateful to President Donald Trump for giving me a second chance, giving me an opportunity to run for Congress by clearing my record. Somebody who was completely oblivious to the corruption that happens in Atlanta, Georgia. I just wanted to do something for my community. I refuse to be silent. Not only will I stand for Atlanta, Georgia, not only will I stand for America, not only will I stand for the babies being aborted in the womb, not only will I stand for the mothers that choose life, I'm also going to stand with President Donald Trump.
I'm telling you, Angela Stanton, telling you, you guys got, I'm surprised she didn't win because she's the truth. But she's right. We tweeting out justice for that YSL boy, or oh, the guy Young Thug, he's in for a RICO charge, same as Donald Trump, and he didn't get no bond, but he's trafficking drugs and killing people. This is a gang member, so it doesn't equate. Anyway, so people love Donald Trump. He's become more popular in the Black community. Now, Angela Stanton always been in his corner. And I think because he didn't judge her from her past, he basically looked at her just like any other person. And many people of the Democratic Party will tell you Donald Trump is racist. That narrative, they've been pushing that, and that narrative is not true. They need to stop that. And we need to stop believing it, especially Black folks. We as Black folks, we need to stop believing that narrative that Donald Trump is racist. So let's see how long I've been going. I've been going for 2 hours. 2 hours. I've been going strong. Robert Jordan said these Democrats care more about the party than they do about America. Yeah, they do. I go back to what I was saying yesterday. They bringing all these immigrants over here so they could say, hey, remember, we let you come over here. You could vote. Remember, vote Democrat. That's what they're doing. You don't need an ID to vote. You don't need an ID to vote. So vote Democrat. They're trying to say you vote, having an ID to vote is unconstitutional. Who doesn't have a federal ID or a state ID? Who doesn't have a state ID? But they use it and they word it in such a way you think it is out to get you. But who doesn't have a state ID? I know everyone. And then they try to put Black people. Oh, it's against, you're taking away Black people's rights. Every Black person I know have a state ID. Even if it's not a valid driver's license, they still have an ID. Put a 1 in the chat if you Black and you don't got no ID, so I can blast you out. Put a 1 in the chat if you don't have an ID. Okay. So that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to bring a bunch of illegal immigrants. You Black folks is now the minority, and then they can have more pull with the election. They don't care about you. They care about election and power. They don't care about you. They care about election and power. That's why we have an open border policy. That's why they're trying to change the voter laws or voting laws. They're going to try to change the immigration laws so we won't have any immigration laws. They just want tyranny. They're trying to take away your guns. They're trying to rig the election. They're doing all these things. We better wake up. I got one more story I want to share with you. It's a different angle. And it's kind of sad. Let me see. This lady is suing Virginia schools because they secretly transitioned her child. And her child, I guess she went to this school, high school, and she was saying that this is a kid that she adopted like at birth. She said her kid was bullied. The school advised the child not to let her parents know, and the child did not want her parents to know. So they kept this transition a secret. So she was allowed to change. Well, actually, her mother knew she wanted to dress more like a tomboy. But at the school, they didn't refer to her as her birth name, her regular name. She referred to herself as a boy name. Not only that, they allowed this young lady to use the boys' bathroom where she was being bullied and assaulted in the bathroom. So I'm going to let you listen to this story. And this is horrible. It's kind of sad, but it's all because the school, the government, they think they have the right to parent your kids and transition your kids without you knowing.
And that her counselor said she could, after my son died. I am Sage's mother, better known as Nana. I adopted Sage after my son died when she was still a baby. She's been through 6 foster homes by then, but we loved her, and she blossomed into a joyful, lively girl who made music and art. Puberty began and COVID hit, and she was treated for depression and anxiety, at times very severe. Her teachers shared any concerns with me so her treatment could be adapted. The transparency ended in August of 2021 when Sage started high school. She started a public high school, and she told me that all the girls there were bi, trans, lesbian, emo, and she wanted to wear boys' clothes and be emo. Because I saw it as just a phase, it was fine with me. But at school, she told them something different. She was now a boy named Draco with male pronouns. Sage asked the school not to tell me, and they did not tell me, even though I informed them of her mental health history and medication. If I had known, this would be a much different story. She was terribly bullied. No one told me, but boys followed her, touched her, threatened violence and rape. Something happened in the boys' bathroom, but for 2 days, the school told me nothing. They kept meeting with Sage alone, and she became so distraught, they called me to pick her up.
You guys don't find a problem with that? The school and your baby keeping information like this from you. Something happened to her child at the school and they didn't tell her. And they still didn't tell her after she picked her up. She had to pry it out of her kid.
That evening, I found a hall pass labeled Draco, and Sage told me she was identifying as a boy, and that her counselor said she could use the boys' bathroom. She'd been jacked up against the wall by a group of boys. She was crying, terrified. I said, just stay home, we'll figure it out. That was my last conversation with Sage for 5 months. The night she ran, she thought to a young friend she'd met online. She left a note saying she was scared of what would happen if she stayed. The sheriff, FBI, search dogs were called in. I dropped to my knees in prayer. 9 days later, the FBI found her in Baltimore. My baby had been lured online, sex trafficked by DC, then Maryland. She was locked in a room, drugged, gang raped, and brutalized by countless men. It was night. The FBI told us to pick her up in Maryland the next morning. We packed our cars with blankets and stuffed animals and arrived by 8 a.m. But we were told we couldn't see her and were summoned before Judge Robert Kershaw late that afternoon. They didn't even tell Sage that we came for her. We finally entered the courtroom, and Sage appears on a huge Zoom screen from a prison cell. She looks tiny and broken, and I cry out, "I love you, Sage." Sage responds, "I love you too, Nana." But attorney Anissa Khan rebukes us. She is a he, and his name is Draco, not Sage. We were floored. What? Khan accuses us of emotional and physical abuse, that we are misgendering her, even though we just learned she claims to be trans and we're willing to use any name and pronouns to bring her home. My husband was so tearful he kept forgetting the new pronouns, so the judge had the bailiff remove him from the courtroom. I was pleading for my child to be returned.
That judge should lose their judgeship. You so worried about the pronouns, but not what happened to the girl. She was literally trafficked, but you worried about pronouns.
And treated for her unspeakable trauma. Judge Kershaw told me if I used the word trauma again, he would throw me out too.
Judge Kershaw, we're going to look him up. He's a piece of you know what.
For over 2 months, he withheld custody. He housed Sage in a male quarters of a children's home. Sage told me she was the only girl and repeatedly assaulted. She was given street drugs by the other kids, and Khan told her she didn't care. She just wanted to win the case and all the way to Supreme Court if necessary. Khan tried to prove abuse, but we were eventually cleared by both states of all charges. Sage later told me Khan had told her to lie, that we hit her. Khan even had Sage's school counselors testify against us, though they barely knew Sage, and they didn't know us at all. Khan told my precious child I didn't want her anymore. I found out Sage never received any of the letters I sent her. Sage ran from the children's home and disappeared for months. They told me she might already be gone forever, but I couldn't give up, and I finally found a tip on her social media that led the marshals to her in Texas. She had been drugged, raped, beaten, and exploited. This time I was able to be with her for the traumatic rape exam and to bring her home. Back in Virginia, she entered the mental health facility that Judge Kershaw had ordered, as it would affirm her as a male. The therapist began pressuring her to have her healthy breasts removed. Sage was too scared to protest, but she asked me to secretly buy her girls' clothes because she wanted to be a girl, but keep them in the car. It took a kind lawyer, Josh Hetzler, to secure her discharge. After almost a year, Sage was finally home, safe, alive. Sage is receiving professional trauma care. The first trafficker has already been convicted. Sage has nightmares, panic attacks, rape-related medical issues, but there's hope. I told her she's not broken, she's just scarred. And part of that hope is that in courageously sharing her story, others will be saved. Sage said she doesn't know who she was back then. She wasn't a boy. She just wanted to have friends. But her school, the judge, the attorney, and the doctor were all blinded by their ideology. The consequences for Sage were unspeakable. Please don't let ideology harm another child. Let parents do our jobs. We know our children best, and we love them a million times more. Thank you.
That was heart-wrenching. But you have people in the system trying to take away your kids. That's what we talked about yesterday. California, they passed a law they could take away your kids if you don't affirm their identity. They were secretly transitioning her. The judge trying to force his ideology on everybody, even the parents, which is ridiculous. So let me see if they if she actually won this court case. It's a school district over gender identity. It's still ongoing. It's still ongoing. And why would you encourage? This is the little girl. Look like a little girl. Why would you allow her to use the boy bathroom? Hey, I know you feel like a boy, but you still got a vagina. You still got to use the girl's bathroom, and you look like a girl. This is, I guess, what she was wearing. You don't even look like a boy. Anissa Khan, she's a Baltimore public defender, which she should lose her license. She should lose her license. Oh, and she already got some people looked her up. If what is written is even a little true, you should be disbarred. What an evil heart you have. Why in the world is this disgrace being so honored? The law school should absolutely ashamed of itself celebrating this fraud. She perjured herself before Maryland court, for which she should be disbarred. This woman should be in jail for what she's allowed, and pretty face much forced to happen to a child. Should be ashamed to ever show her face. This is just, she probably shut her in. She probably doesn't. And this is an old post. But that's what she looked like. She's a Jim McQueen emo goddess. Cut it out. Cut it out. Emo goddess. Emo goodness. I can't read emo goodness. Emo, it sounds like, look, she looked like a cartoon character. Because the blue hair, and I guess that's what the kids are into, you know, these funky hair colors. But what is emo? What's the definition of emo? Let me see. You know, that's a anime or anime cartoon type thing. Is typically dressed in black and black hair. Emo is associated with kids who suffer from depression. That's weird. But yeah, this is the lady who tried to ruin somebody's life. Or basically, she did. And let's see if the judge name, I couldn't find the spelling of the name. It says the family is now suing Appomattox County School Board, 2 school counselors, and COM for unspecified damages. The superintendent, Annette Bennett, and COM both didn't immediately return requests on Monday. They probably gonna fire them after the incident. If they fire them now, they can't admitting that they were wrong. I think that's how that works. They didn't put the judge's name on here. I was seeing if I could find a judge's name because he's just as worse as that con lady. You're going to kick somebody out the courtroom because they're not calling their daughter a boy. You're not addressing their pronouns. But hell, I've been raising them since they've been born, and they always been a girl to me. So what do you mean? Anyway, so you guys, that was it for our live stream today. I'm going to head off. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for coming in and supporting my channel and hanging out with me. So I'll be on tomorrow. I'm going to try to do it a little bit earlier, around noonish, maybe 3 o'clock. I do around 3 o'clock because some people go to church. So about 3 o'clock, I'll probably get online. Or you know what? 5. Let's see. I went from noon, 3 to 5. But yeah, you guys, I'm sending all my good to you. I will talk to you tomorrow.